Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 45 of the Memorial Memo, KSR's Kentucky Women's Basketball Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a big one today. I mean, all these are going to be big. I think I say that every episode, but it's just like the news keeps on hitting. The vibes keep on rolling. Got a big win yesterday. Got a big game coming on Saturday, the next Tuesday that we're going to talk about. We're going to hit it all, but I want to start with some news, right? Of course, it's early signing period, but I'm going to get to that in like one brief second. Kentucky actually just made the top 10 for class of 2027 five-star center Caroline Bradley. She visited during Big Blue Madness. I've heard that the visit went really well. I've heard that, obviously Big Blue Madness was a great thing this year. I've heard that was all a big success, especially with the Fan Fest and everything. She is the number 6 player in the 2027 class overall and the top center in the class, according to Rivals. Of course, Kentucky among the 10 finalists alongside the likes of Alabama, UCLA, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Vandy, LSU. I think LSU, if you were to look at it at the moment, may be the favorite. She's from that area. They've been in on her for a while. So LSU, Duke, Texas A&M, and South Carolina. So obviously you have some pretty great teams you have to beat there. You know, this isn't going to be any sort of cakewalk for any reason. But I think regardless, Kentucky, again, from what I've heard from that visit, things could probably go well there, and I don't see why they can't. Again, she narrows down to a top 10. I would imagine maybe sometime next year, next summer-ish, maybe, she commits. So, again, that'll be an interesting one to follow. But Kentucky makes the top 10 for the top center in the class of 27. Now, back to the signing period. We saw earlier today 4-star guard Emily McDonald and 5-star guard Savvy Swords both officially signed with Kentucky. They both been committed for a little while. I've been told that we can expect Madden Greenway to also sign during this early signing period. You know, I know sometimes recruits like to have their own little moment, like to their own little thing. I've been told she will be signing during this early signing period. That should be announced. Of course, the signing period started yesterday and runs through the 19th. So she has a window from now until November 19th to officially announce her signing. I actually don't know if Kentucky is quite done yet in the 26 class. I know these 3 have kind of been locked up for a little while. I think they're looking to add to a 4th, but we're going to get to that when we talk about the Purdue game, and you'll see why. But first, before we go that far, we got to talk about that win yesterday, right? Kentucky beats USC Upstate 90-30. I mean, my goodness, 90-30. Just, incredible stuff. That was a really fun game to watch. You know what I mean? Like it was, when you beat a team by 60, it's going to be really hard to complain. And I think the main story from the night has to be Toni Morgan. In the win, she got 11 points, but recorded 16 assists, which tied a program record, a record that Patty Jo Hedges held since 1982. So her and Patty Jo now have that record. I mean, that's incredible stuff, right? You bring her in, and not only does she get 16 assists on 0 turnovers, not a single one. So, again, just absolutely phenomenal stuff from her. You know, you bring her in, and obviously Georgia Amoore leaves. It's a big question mark of, oh my gosh, what do we do? And, you know, with Madden Greenway, who we were just talking about. And actually, I should dive more into those recruits specifically and kind of what they bring, who they picked up, who they picked Kentucky over. I'll go back to that actually after this USC Upstate recap. But you're waiting. You have like this year where you have to bridge between Georgia Amoore and Madden Greenway. And so Kenny Brooks and the staff are kind of put in an awkward spot. So, what do you do when you lose an all-conference point guard like Georgia Amore? Oh, hey, let's bring in another all-conference point guard. Why not? And it's worked out well, like really well. Of course, scoring the ball, she hasn't quite been Georgia Amore, but I don't think you're asking her to be Georgia Amore in that regard. Last year you needed Georgia to will you to wins like she did against Oklahoma on the road and Liberty in the NCAA tournament. Like, you know what I mean? Like when it comes to Toni Morgan, you're not necessarily asking her to be, an elite scorer. You just need her to be an elite passer and 16 assists, no turnovers. She did that perfectly. Just watching her last night, she had just a really quiet game for the most part. Like you're watching her and you don't even realize, sort of what she is doing. And then really just kind of all of a sudden she gets to 9 assists. And you're like, oh, that's 9 assists, 9+ assists in her three straight games for her. That's pretty good. And then she gets to 10 and you're like, okay, she has a double-double. Well, then her 11th assist is her 500th career assist. And you're like, okay, that's pretty cool. You get to number 12, and it's like, oh, that's the most since Michaela Epps did that 10 years ago. And then 13, 14, 15, and we're all sitting there at that 15th assist just waiting and kind of pleading. Because at that point, we've realized the history that can happen. And we're like, oh, my gosh, is this really going to happen? And then she gets it, the 16th assist. The building goes crazy. I think we all kind of realized it in a moment. It was a really fun environment. Again, it wasn't like the most packed house in the world, but at the same time, you had it was a loud bunch. I think I said that about the Monmouth game, maybe where non-conference play, the crowds haven't been the greatest, but it's a loud crowd, and you'll always take that. I think with the crowd, like you just got to have better home games in the non-conference. And that's something Kenny and the staff know. I think Kenny's acknowledged that they thought they were going to get the Miami game at home in the SEC ACC Challenge. Like Kenny and the staff know that to get fans in the arena, you gotta play good teams, right? And of course, when it comes to SEC play, they won't really have that problem. But in these non-conference games, they might. Of course, Kentucky. Again, I keep alluding to it, but that Purdue game, that's a power conference opponent. That should be a really good one. That's a game that, Kentucky, they want it to be a really big environment. So, again, that will be something to look for. But, yeah, just with the non-conference home games, like what's the best non-con home game besides Purdue? Just looking at the schedule in front of me, Morehead State. Your non-conference home games, and I have the schedule up here on the wall, I'm not going crazy, are Morehead State, Monmouth, USC Upstate, Purdue, Central Michigan, Wright State, and Hofstra. That sucks, just looking at it. And I know it's good to get the wins under your belt when you can get them. But, again, you have to give the fans something to get out and be excited for. Of course, I know, Louisville will be at home next year. I actually do like the neutral site game with Maryland, down there in that Discover Puerto Rico shootout. But you would just like to see them maybe add one more premier home game, one more power conference home game. Because I like Purdue. Kentucky should beat Purdue pretty handily. So, again, I'm all for getting wins when you can get them. But at the same time, I think – you know what I mean? I think you got to play better teams. You got to play good teams in order to get butts and seats. And of course, like I said, wins are nice. Just got to play better teams. Going back to the stat sheet from the USC Upstate game, shout out Clara Strack, who is just continuing to play truly one of the best centers in America. 18 points, 8 of 12 shooting. How about 2 of 5 from 3? Now, I know that number, 2 of 5, doesn't sound the sexiest, but that's 40%, y'all. Clara Strack shooting 40% from 3. What can she not do at this point? 16 rebounds, 12 of them on the defensive side, 4 offensive rebounds, and then 4 blocks and 3 steals. And she only played 26 minutes. All of that in 26 minutes. Clara Strack, when I was talking to people around the program this summer, talk was pretty quiet about her, and I didn't know what to make of it. I knew it wasn't a bad thing necessarily, because I think I would have heard if something bad was happening, right? But it was just like, anytime I talk to Clara Strack, they're just like, yep, she's Clara Strack. She's doing her thing. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, what does that really mean? And clearly it means she's gotten a lot better. Her 3-point shot, while still not like, at the end of the game and you're down by 3, I'm not giving the ball to Clara Strack to shoot the last shot. But can she hit the open 3? Yeah. I mean, even if it's a little bit contested, she can hit it. Just, again, when you have a center as dominant as her, as gifted and as talented as her, and she can shoot 40% from 3. Now, I know that's one game. I know in the year she's shooting above 30%. I think it's 31, 32%. Again, not elite numbers, but she can hit the 3. And it's not like a guaranteed miss every time. It's just, I would hate to be any team trying to scout against her, because, when the ESPN Plus commentators got on there for the Buffalo game and they said we might be watching the best center in America, I think there's a little bit of validity to their argument. I want to give a quick shout out to Amelia Hassett, who, again, really quietly, Kentucky's second leading scorer on the year, and was the leading scorer in the USC Upstate game, had 20 points on 7 of 12 shooting, 4 of 9 from 3-point range. You'll certainly take that as well. And then 5 rebounds and 3 assists as well. And then Asia Boone shot 4 of 9 from deep for 12 points, dished out 3 dimes along the way as well. Again, you just like the diversity, the deepness of this team. Like, I get it's USC Upstate, and I get it was Monmouth. I get it was Buffalo. I get it was Morehead State, even though they kind of struggled in that one. But you're winning the games like you're supposed to, and you're winning dominantly. And, I mean, if you're Tony Morgan, you're making history while you do it, right? I thought it was great. Like, it reminds me of like Kenny Brooks' Big Blue Madness intro, where he's talking about how we're not done yet. Like his record-breaking, literally shattering like the DJ records. And his record-breaking was the theme of the intro. And he says, and we're not done yet. And he was right, because, I mean, you have Tony Morgan doing it. So, what's crazy is that Tony Morgan, with last night's game, is now on pace to break Georgia Amore's single-season assist record that she set last year. And yes, that was my hot take leading into the season, which I will boast proudly. But it just goes to show how crazy Tony Morgan is playing. Again, the offense, I think she's still figuring it out. Last night was a step in the right direction. But as far as passing the ball, she can't be any better. I mean, 16 assists, no turnovers. That doesn't get any better. Like I said, I did want to go back to the signing period stuff, because I failed to mention, just how impressive it was when Kentucky got the recruits that they got, right? So we'll start with Emily McDonald, who was the first to sign. She picked Kentucky over the likes of South Carolina, TCU, Maryland, Michigan State, North Carolina, and Virginia Tech. I heard kind of towards the end of that recruitment, it was really more Kentucky or South Carolina, and it was a 2-horse race, and it was neck and neck, and Kenny Brooks beat out Dawn Staley for her commitment. Of course, she is high school teammates with Savvy Swords up there at Long Island Lutheran in New York. A great shooter, a great piece for the backcourt. It's hard to compare her to a player because I think she's so unique, but I'm not expecting her to be dead-eye 3-point shooter or anything, but I think she's really gifted offensively. Again, with her size, can defend, be really versatile. I think she can thrive in Kenny Brooks type defense. So again, Emily McDonald, top 40 prospect, number 36 in the class, according to Rivals, signs with Kentucky. And then Savvy Swords. Again, another really impressive kid the number 10 player in the class. She committed to Kentucky over UCLA, South Carolina. So that's 2 recruits Kenny's beating out for South Carolina now. Notre Dame, and then Michigan, where her sister, Sila Swords, who was last year's one of the best freshmen in them, or not last year. Maybe it was last year. Maybe it was the year before. Sila Swords at Michigan was one of the best freshmen in America. I can't remember if she's a sophomore or junior at the moment. But, I mean, clearly Savvy wanted to, kind of chart her own path here at the collegiate level. But, again, it just goes to show, UCLA, South Carolina, Notre Dame, well, those are 3 of the top 5-10 programs in America. And then Michigan is where her sister plays. And Kentucky beats out all of them again for this highly coveted 5-star recruit. And then, of course, the one who, I don't know if I'm biased, but I've gotten to see her play in person. I've gotten to interview her. Madden Greenway, Kentucky's highest, if you go by Rivals rankings, she's the number 9 player in the class. And, of course, if you go by that and then the ESPN rankings they had in the back in the day, Madden Greenway is Kentucky's highest-ranked commit since Lene Harper, who was number 5 back in 2013. Kentucky with Savvy and Madden signed because Madden isn't technically signed yet, have 2 commits, I'll say that, in the top 10 for the first time in school history. I mean, this is the best class Kenny Brooks has the best class Kentucky has ever reeled in, and that's just Kenny Brooks' second season. Madden committed to Kentucky over, I'm trying to find it. I had it written down, and I lost it. Well, I know it was Iowa, UCLA. There we go. Iowa, UCLA, Clemson, Duke, and Stanford. And if you know that Greenway last name, well, her mom was a track star at Iowa, and her dad, who you may know a little bit better, was a star linebacker at Iowa and proceeded to go on to play for the Minnesota Vikings for over a decade. So the legacy is strong there. She actually talked to, I interviewed her kind of when she committed, and she talked about how, I've been a Hawkeye fan my whole life, and with both my parents having gone there, obviously my dad, I've lived in Minnesota with my dad, I've lived in Minnesota my whole life, excuse me, I'm getting jumbled here. I've always been under his shadow, so I just wanted to make my own path. So Madden Greenway, Emily McDonald, Savvy Swords, those are 3 really, really impressive sort of commits that you get. And then, again, I'm going to talk about it a bit more in detail here in a minute. It may not just be those 3 in the end. I want to give a quick shout to our friends over at Roback for sponsoring today's episode. Change the game with Roback, a proud partner of KSR. Get the best fit and best feel with their incredibly comfortable activewear. From polos and quarter zips to shorts and Delta Performance pants, you will look and feel really good with Roback. Use promo code KSR for 20% off your first purchase at roback.com. So moving on a little bit, Kentucky Marshall, that is a road game for the Cats. Again, Kentucky plays at Buffalo, and now they're playing at Marshall. Should be a really interesting game. Marshall is a well-coached team. Not only are they well-coached, they're actually coached by, as you see in the middle of the screen, by Julie Folks, who was previously at Trancey here in town, right down the road. Of course, there, she had the 64-game winning streak, won 33-0 there in the 22-23 season. In the last 3 years she was at Trancey, she went 91-2. She took over for Kim Caldwell, who is now at Tennessee. On the 11th, on Tuesday, they went on the road and played at Indiana, and it was a really close one. They only lost by 6 points, 57-51. That's their only loss on the year. They're 2-1 on the year, so it sounds like Coach Folks has already got things rolling there in Huntington. And then Kentucky, as a whole, is 4-0 against Marshall all time. Just kind of looking at some of their key players. Who can we expect to really contribute for Marshall. They have a guard in Olivia Olson, averaging 13 points. And I believe these stats were not updated through the Indiana game. So these are through their first 2 games of the season. Just be mindful of that. Olivia Olson, guard for them, averaging 13 points, 1.7 steals, and shooting 0.4% from deep. Lighting it up from beyond the arc. That's someone Kentucky will definitely have to keep an eye on. They have a guard in Tamaya Lewis-Utsi, averaging 10 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 4 steals per game. This is a Marshall team that's very active on the defensive side of the ball. As a team, they're averaging 15 steals a game, which, I don't have the rankings pulled up at the moment, but that's got to be near the top of the list. Well, actually, I say that, but Hannah Hidalgo by herself the other night had 16 steals, which is an NCAA record. So maybe it's not near the top at all. Maybe it's a little bit down the list just because of Hannah up there at Notre Dame. You have a guard in Cassie Ingram, averaging 7 points, 2.3 rebounds, and 1.3 steals per game. And in my opinion, the sort of last real piece that Kentucky's going to have to really keep an eye on, really scout against, Blessing King, 5.7 points, 8.7 rebounds, and 1.7 assists per game. Marshall isn't going to be your typical mid-major opponent. This game's already on the road, so that's a challenge in itself. But Kentucky now has to play a Marshall team, one coached by Julie Folks, who I think is really, really good as a coach. I mean, you saw it at Transy, and you're kind of seeing it now. And they're 2-1, and their only loss is on the road against a really pretty good Indiana team. So if you're Kentucky, this can't be a trap game. You can't afford to lose this game, especially with resumes and everything. This will actually really help the resume if you win. Kenny's talked about how, the net, which is kind of what everybody goes by for seeding and whatnot, the net rankings, it helps your net ranking when you go on the road and play these teams, when you beat these teams. So I think that's something interesting, something to keep in mind. Now, this Purdue game, first of all, it's a blowout. Okay, so I know this really sucks because this Kentucky-Purdue game should be a really good game for Kentucky fans specifically. I think we should beat Purdue pretty handily. But actually, you know what? I'm gonna trace back real quick my prediction for Marshall and Kentucky because let's get these in, right? Let's not. Why not? Why not? So with Kentucky Marshall, I'll have Kentucky winning. Let's go 76-51, and I'm going to call Clara Strack as my MVP. So you'll remember that and let me know if I'm right or wrong. I guess we'll figure out. Now, back to Purdue. Like I said, this is a blowout. If you're there, wear blue. It just sucks because on Tuesday, Kentucky plays Michigan State in the Champions Classic over on the men's side. Okay, so this is really unfortunate because people are going to want to watch that Champions Classic game. I will want to watch that Champions Classic game. I'll have it pulled up on my computer. So I would just say wear your blue, get out to Memorial, have the game on your phone. Okay, I think that's the best I can do. But regardless, get out there if you can. We got our guy. This is a name I know from KS Board. You should get over there, subscribe. We got good stuff over there, and you'll see why in a second. My guy, Hoochie Man, says they're a line set for the Marshall game yet. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it just yet. I know for, with KSR and On3, we're supposed to use BetMGM as the sort of company sports book. I haven't seen anything on there yet. I don't think they even do stuff till the day of the game, but I do think, look, it's just a secret between all of us, okay? Just look on FanDuel the day before or something, and then it may be there. ESPN might have that. I'm going to see if ESPN does have that at the moment because they do tend to kind of put out their lines a little early. Let's see. Kentucky Marshall. We're not seeing anything. According to the ESPN analytics, Kentucky has a 97% chance of winning. I don't believe that at all. If you were to make me put a percentage number on Kentucky winning this Marshall game, I might say 85 to 90, but I'm not going 97. I mean, that's almost a certain win for Kentucky. But back to Purdue, and the thing I've kind of been alluding at this whole episode, right? The reason I'm sure most of you all are here right now. So when I said earlier, I don't believe Kentucky's quite done yet recruiting in the 2026 class, the reason I say that is, again, I would say, first of all, go subscribe to KSR Plus and KS Board, because if you're over there, you get this information first. And you get really, I would say the full details, but you're going to get pretty much all the details here too. But if you want the information first, and if you want to conversate with us and talk about recruiting and all this stuff, get over there, check it out. Kentucky will have a visitor for this Purdue game on an official visit. I've been told, a source tells KSR that Kentucky will have a visitor in town for the Purdue game. And we played this game with the Illinois secret scrimmage, and we're going to play it again here, where I don't know if I can quite say, well, first of all, I haven't directly heard a name, but I've got a pretty pinpoint idea of who it is. So we're going to play a little game like we did with Illinois and kind of do some guessing around, okay? So for those of you all who want to play this guessing game, what I will say is, first of all, you will not find this recruit in the ESPN Top 100. And it's not because she ain't good at basketball. In fact, and this is maybe the big hint, she can dunk the basketball. So I personally hope Kentucky can reel her in just for that factor, just because, I mean, imagine how entertaining it would be. And it's not like rim grazing can barely, she can dunk the basketball, like get up there and throw it down. And that should be fun to watch if she were to eventually commit to Kentucky. She will be there at the Purdue game. So it's another reason to get out there, show, said recruit a big environment, show them what BBN is all about. Kentucky should, again, I think they should win that game fairly handily. At least they should. But again, get out there, show them the big environment, because there's going to be a pretty important visitor on campus for that game. Just kind of getting into the weeds a little bit of this Purdue game. Last season, they were 10-19 overall. I mean, one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, went 3-15 in conference play. Yesterday, they lost on a game winner, on a buzzer beater at Purdue-Fort Wayne. Kentucky beat Purdue-Fort Wayne last season, actually, at home, and that was a bit of a close game. But again, Kentucky is playing a team who you look at and they're like, oh, this isn't great. They lost at Purdue-Fort Wayne. So shout out, I believe they're the Mastodons. Shout out to them. Again, I saw the clip of it on Twitter. Game winner for them over Purdue. And, of course, last season, Kentucky beat the Boilermakers 82-52 on the road. And then, of course, you have the key players, I would say, for Purdue. Their main one is guard Hyla Karsh, 18 points per game, 6 assists per game, shooting 53.8% from deep, and that is not a typo or a mispronunciation. Well, not mispronunciation, but I'm not wrong in saying that. She is shooting 53.8% from deep. Guard Kiki Smith, I believe she was at Arkansas last season, if I remember right. 15 points per game, 2 rebounds, shooting 31.3% from deep. You have another guard in Tara Day, 9 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. And then the last one to really keep an eye on, again, in my opinion, a guard, Madison Layton-Zay, 7.5 points, 5 rebounds, and shooting 37.5% from deep. The Boilermakers, overall as a team, are shooting 33% from deep. So again, maybe not world beaters shooting the basketball, but they can knock it down. They can get hot, especially some of those guards. Of course, going into that game, I feel pretty good because I feel like Kentucky's defense is really just like elite and one of the best in the country. Again, no one has scored 60 on Kentucky at this season. Morehead State was close. They got 59. But other than that, you have 59, 46, 47, and then 30. That's elite. And Kentucky's averaging over 10 blocks per game, leads the nation, best in the nation in blocks per game. The only team in the country averaging north of 10 blocks per game. So I feel like Kentucky's defense, and Purdue's shooting can be a good sort of hot yin and yang, fire against fire kind of thing. But I think Kentucky's defense probably severely outweighs Purdue's offense. And shout out to Lindsey Hicks, who, of course, is the associate head coach. She went to Purdue and played there, kind of behind the scenes. I guess the athletic trainer would be the good way to put it, sort of team physician maybe. I believe Courtney Jones, she went to Purdue. And then Coach Kevin Konopasek, who was previously at Indiana, he is also a Purdue alum. He's the strength and conditioning coach for the team. So a lot of Purdue connections, a lot of Boilermaker connections going to be on Tuesday night. Of course, the most notable one being Lindsey Hicks. Again, I think Kentucky can win this one fairly easily. I think Kentucky should win it fairly easy. My prediction for this game, I'm going to say Kentucky beats Purdue. Let's go. Just thinking about the games they've played, the games Kentucky has played, I'm going to say 86-63, Cats win. And by the time we start recording next episode, I think Kentucky will be, 6-0, and we're looking at Louisville and the Puerto Rico shootout, and we're saying let's go. We're saying let's finish non-con undefeated. All right, so this has been episode 45 of the Memorial Memo. As always, like, comment, subscribe. If you're watching this video right now and you have not hit like on it, please do so. It would mean a lot. It's not only me, but Stephen Peak and all of us at KSR for your support, your continued support. Again, thank you all so much. It means a lot, to have you all here watching and keeping up with the content. Kentucky women's basketball on the rise under Kenny Brooks. I think it's going to stay that way for a while. So exciting times ahead for sure. Again, I'm Phoenix Stevens. This has been episode 45 of the Memorial Memo. You got signing period and 2 big games. You got a lot of games ahead, but in this episode, we talked about 2 big games ahead. Should be exciting. We will see you all next time. Thank you so much. Go Cats.